Vladimir Ilyich Ulyanov, April 22, 1870 b. January 21, 1924, better known by his alias Lenin, c., was a Russian revolutionary, politician, and political theorist. He served as head of government of Soviet Russia from 1917 to 1924 and of the Soviet Union from 1922 to 1924. Under his administration, Russia and then the wider Soviet Union became a one-party communist state governed by the Russian Communist Party. Ideologically a communist, he developed a variant of Marxism known as Leninism. Born to a moderately prosperous middle-class family in Simbirsk, Lenin embraced revolutionary socialist politics following his brother's 1887 execution. Expelled from Kazan Imperial University for participating in protests against the Russian Empire's Tsarist government, he devoted the following years to a law degree. He moved to St. Petersburg in 1893 and became a senior Marxist activist. In 1897, he was arrested for sedition and exiled to Shushinsky for 3 years, where he married Nadezhda Krupskaya. After his exile, he moved to Western Europe, where he became a prominent theorist in the Marxist Russian Social Democratic Labour Party, RSDLP. In 1903, he took a key role in a RSDLP ideological split, leading the Bolshevik faction against Julius Martov's Mensheviks. Encouraging insurrection during Russia's failed revolution of 1905, he later campaigned for the First World War to be transformed into a Europe-wide proletarian revolution, which as a Marxist he believed would cause the overthrow of capitalism and its replacement with socialism. After the 1917 February Revolution ousted the Tsar and established a provisional government, he returned to Russia to play a leading role in the October Revolution, in which the Bolsheviks overthrew the new regime. Lenin's Bolshevik government initially shared power with the left socialist revolutionaries, elected Soviets, and a multi-party constituent assembly, although by 1918 it had centralized power in the new Communist Party. Lenin's administration redistributed land among the peasantry and nationalized banks and large-scale industry. It withdrew from the First World War by signing a treaty conceding territory to the Central Powers, and promoted world revolution through the Communist International. Opponents were suppressed in the Red Terror, a violent campaign administered by the state security services. Tens of thousands were killed or interned in concentration camps. His administration defeated right and left-wing anti-Bolshevik armies in the Russian Civil War from 1917 to 1922 and oversaw the Polish-Soviet War of 1919 to 1921. Responding to wartime devastation, famine, and popular uprisings, in 1921 Lenin encouraged economic growth through the market-oriented new economic policy. Several non-Russian nations had secured independence from the Russian Empire after 1917, but 3 were reunited into the new Soviet Union in 1922. His health failing, Lenin died in Gorky, with Joseph Stalin succeeding him as the preeminent figure in the Soviet government. Widely considered one of the most significant and influential figures of the 20th century, Lenin was the posthumous subject of a pervasive personality cult within the Soviet Union until its dissolution in 1991. He became an ideological figurehead behind Marxism-Leninism and thus a prominent influence over the international communist movement. A controversial and highly divisive historical figure, Lenin is viewed by supporters as a champion of socialism and the working class, while critics on both the left and right emphasize his role as founder and leader of an authoritarian regime responsible for political repression and mass killings. Lenin's father, Ilya Nikolaevich Ulyanov, was from a family of serfs. His ethnic origins remain unclear, with suggestions being made that he was Russian, Chuvash, Mordvin, or Kalmug. 2. Despite this lower-class background, Ilya had risen to middle-class status, studying physics and mathematics at Kazan Imperial University before teaching at the Penza Institute for the Nobility. 3. Ilya married Maria Alexandrovna Blank in mid-1863. 4. Well-educated, she was the daughter of a wealthy German-Swedish Lutheran mother, and a Russian Jewish father who had converted to Christianity and worked as a physician. 5. It is likely that Lenin was unaware of his mother's half-Jewish ancestry, which was only discovered by his sister Anna after his death. 6. Soon after their wedding, Ilya obtained a job in Nizhny Novgorod, rising to become director of primary schools in the Simbirsk district 6 years later. 5 years after that, he was promoted to director of public schools for the province, overseeing the foundation of over 450 schools as a part of the government's plans for modernization. His dedication to education earned him the Order of Saint Vladimir, which bestowed on him the status of hereditary nobleman. 7. Lenin was born in Streletskaya Ulitsa, Simbirsk, na Ulyanovsk, on April 22, 1870 and baptized 6 days later, 8. As a child he was known as Volodya, a diminutive of Vladimir. 9. He was the third of 8 children, having 2 older siblings, Anna, born 1864, and Alexander, born 1866. They were followed by 3 more children, Olga, born 1871, Dmitry, born 1874, and Maria, born 1878. 2 later siblings died in infancy. 10. Ilya was a devout member of the Russian Orthodox Church and baptized his children into it, although Maria, a Lutheran by upbringing, was largely indifferent to Christianity, a view that influenced her children. 11. Both parents were monarchists and liberal conservatives, being committed to the emancipation reform of 1861 introduced by the reformist Tsar Alexander II. They avoided political radicals and there is no evidence that the police ever put them under surveillance for subversive thought. 12. Every summer they holidayed at a rural manor in Kokoshkino. 13. Among his siblings, Lenin was closest to his sister Olga, whom he often bossed around. He had an extremely competitive nature and could be destructive, but usually admitted his misbehavior. 14. A keen sportsman, he spent much of his free time outdoors or playing chess, and excelled at school, the disciplinarian and conservative Simbirsk Classical Gymnasia. 15. In January 1886, when Lenin was 15, his father died of a brain hemorrhage. 16. Subsequently, his behavior became erratic and confrontational and he renounced his belief in God. 17. At the time, Lenin's elder brother Alexander, whom he affectionately knew as Sasha, was studying at St. Petersburg University. Involved in political agitation against the absolute monarchy of the reactionary Tsar Alexander III, Alexander Ulyanov studied the writings of banned leftists and organized anti-government protests. He joined a revolutionary cell bent on assassinating the Tsar and was selected to construct a bomb. Before the attack could take place, the conspirators were arrested and tried, and in May, Alexander was executed by hanging. 18. Despite the emotional trauma of his father's and brother's deaths, Lenin continued studying, graduated from school at the top of his class with a gold medal for exceptional performance, and decided to study law at Kazan University. 19. Upon entering Kazan University in August 1887, Lenin moved into a nearby flat. 20. There, he joined a Zemliexvo, a form of university society that represented the men of a particular region. 21. This group elected him as its representative to the university's Zemliexvo Council, and in December, he took part in a demonstration against government restrictions that banned student societies. The police arrested Lenin and accused him of being a ringleader in the demonstration. He was expelled from the university, and the Ministry of Internal Affairs exiled him to his family's Kokoshkino estate. 22. There, he read voraciously, becoming enamored with Nikolai Chernyshevsky's 1863 pro-revolutionary novel What is to be Done? 23. Lenin's mother was concerned by her son's radicalization, and was instrumental in convincing the Interior Ministry to allow him to return to the city of Kazan, but not the university. 24. On his return, he joined Nikolai Fedoseyev's Revolutionary Circle, through which he discovered Karl Marx's 1867 book Capital. This sparked his interest in Marxism, a socio-political theory that argued that society developed in stages, that this development resulted from class struggle, and that capitalist society would ultimately give way to socialist society and then communist society. 25. Wary of his political views, Lenin's mother bought a country estate in Alakivka village, Samara Oblast, in the hope that her son would turn his attention to agriculture. He had little interest in farm management, and his mother soon sold the land, keeping the house as a summer home. 26. In September 1889, the Ulyanov family moved to the city of Samara, where Lenin joined Alexei Sklerenko's Socialist Discussion Circle. 27. There, Lenin fully embraced Marxism and produced a Russian-language translation of Marx and Friedrich Engels's 1848 political pamphlet, The Communist Manifesto. 28. He began to read the works of the Russian Marxist Georgy Plekhanov, agreeing with Plekhanov's argument that Russia was moving from feudalism to capitalism and so socialism would be implemented by the proletariat, or urban working class, rather than the peasantry. 29. This Marxist perspective contrasted with the view of the agrarian socialist Narodnik movement, which held that the peasantry could establish socialism in Russia by forming peasant communes, thereby bypassing capitalism. This Narodnik view developed in the 1860s with the People's Freedom Party and was then dominant within the Russian revolutionary movement. 30. Lenin rejected the premise of the agrarian socialist argument, but was influenced by agrarian socialists like Pyotr Chev and Sergei Nechayev, and befriended several Narodniks. 31.